Welcome to the morning room. This room is home to hidden cupboards where numerous intriguing documents lay to rest in the secret crevices for over 200 years. But why? Upon the removal of a servant's staircase, a letter declaring the death of a poor Miss Anne was discovered. Who was she, and how did she die? The house itself harbours many a secret, with its sealed-off passageways, concealed cellars, and several bricked-up doorways. Legend has it there is even an escape tunnel built for 10th century monks and rumoured to lead all the way to the River Thames. The families that owned Hall Place from 1735 to 1949 have taken their history and secrets with them. Our ghostly tales are the legacy of newspaper reports, student anecdotes, and local folklore. For many years, tales of ghostly apparitions, eerie noises, and mysterious supernatural activity have been reported. A horse and carriage is said to cross the lawns while a grey lady stands at the top of the stairs. Doors have opened and closed, seemingly by themselves. Furniture moved and perfumes, unlike those of today, have inhabited rooms. The sound of servants' bells and children playing have also been noted. Some of these accounts we will hear of today. Some are old, and some are more recent. So, without further ado, sit comfortably, try not to relax, keep your eyes wide open, and just listen.
I write once more of the horrors that trouble us here. Certainly we are not alone in the house. My wife has returned to London, for the doctor and I feared one more night at Hall Place would surely be her undoing. It is with deep reticence that I remain, and only in an attempt to rid our home of the tormented spirit that haunts us. Last night was too disturbing indeed. The now familiar and unrelenting activity returned once more. The footsteps down the long gallery, the eerie cries calling into the darkness, and the opening and closing of doors. For so long we have attributed these to the movements of a large and ageing house. But of late the activity has increased in both dreadfulness and duration. Against my better judgment, but compelled as I am to seek an answer, I employed the services of a local clairvoyant. A wrinkled, worn woman with dark eyes and a mournful look arrived promptly and introduced herself as Madame Almeida. Immediately, she asked me to be taken to the now disused smoking room. How could she have known this is where the demonic scenes begin? There in the silence, she moved around the room, touching the covered furniture, whispering to herself and strangely stroking the walls. "We are not alone," she said, and then... There, that terrifying disembodied shriek we had long become accustomed to. Madame Almeida paced the room, saying, "Spirit, what do you want? Spirit, tell me why you are here." Far off, a child's cry could be heard, and then the familiar, indistinct music began. There are no children here, and yet night after night the same cry. Madame Almeida looked past me, but I sensed she was communing with something or someone in the void. "Spirit, why are you here?" she inquired. "The child, Sir Robert," she explained, "was not of this world, but a spiritual go-between." As we stood, frozen to the spot and unsure what to do, an overpowering fragrance filled the room. "She's here, Sir Robert. Our spirit, she is here." The room had turned cold and a fear gripped me. I wanted to stop the proceedings, but something prevented me. As laughter and music filled the room, the clairvoyant began to chant what sounded like a child's nursery rhyme. "Falling, falling, a fatal blow, and all the time she dances below. Falling, falling, from the window he goes." With a ghoulish scream, the music stopped. With it, the child's cry had ceased. "It is the child," moaned Madame Almeida. "He is dead." My head began to spin, delirious under the weight of such a presence. A child's death, I thought. But I know nothing of such an event. And then, just as I felt I could bear no more, with that, Madame Almeida relaxed, announcing, "She has gone." Some days later, a letter arrived from my Aunt Augusta. "Dear Robert, I cannot and will not divulge every sordid detail of this family's past indiscretions, but you are deserving of an answer," she wrote. My aunt confirmed that a child had died some years ago. It was said that the heartbroken governess was dismissed immediately, yet there was much talk of a suicide. My aunt claimed that it could very well be she who visits the smoking room. Her calling card, perfume. "Make no use of that dreadful room," my aunt implored me. Her letter finished with words that haunt me far greater than any of the paranormal events I bore witness to. "I have heard tell, Robert, that once the scent of her perfume is detected, she will return to consume your very soul."
My name is Elizabeth Bates. I am the laundry maid at Hall Place. I work in the basement and never see much of the upstairs. Mrs. Hanson, the lady in charge of me, is very strict about where we staff are allowed to go. That's why I found it strange that she woke me in the middle of the night, asking me to investigate a noise she had heard upstairs in the house. I wasn't keen, but I couldn't refuse. The other staff was up in London with Sir Gilbert and his wife, so there was just Mrs. Hanson and me present. It was a cold, damp night, and an easterly wind raced through the estate. We slowly worked our way across the wind-battered courtyard and arrived at a door I'd never been permitted to use before. Nervously, Mrs. Hanson dropped her keys. And at that point, I heard a noise coming from the top of the house. Was it the wind, I thought, or just my imagination playing tricks? Mrs. Hanson kept every door locked, so it took us a while to reach the main stairs. There, I heard the strange noise once more. Mrs. Hanson said nothing, silently leading the way. Each stair creaked as we drew closer to the top floor, the noise intensifying as we went. It was not a howl or a cry, but a mixture of the two. Not a human sound at all. I must have been insane to carry on up the final steps to the top floor, but Mrs. Hanson and I felt compelled to do so. She handed me a candle and held my forearm tightly. She pointed to a door at the top of the stairs. Frozen to the spot, she uttered the words, "Locked tight." I noticed a look of fear in her eyes as she stared intently at the door. "Do you wish for me to open it, Mrs. Hanson?" I whispered, taking her keys. Her grip on my arm tightened, and before I could climb the final step, the door opened. "But it's locked, Elizabeth. I locked it. 3 times I've locked it," cried Mrs. Hanson. "Master's orders. It must be locked." Out of the darkness, the tormented noise I'd heard before drew us into a long, dark corridor. It was gloomy and uninviting. Sadness overpowered me, as if some tragedy had visited this place. Mrs. Hanson attempted to open a large door to her left. It was locked tight. I crossed over to the door opposite, locked also. Suddenly, Mrs. Hanson gasped, "The family portraits, Elizabeth." I held my candle a little higher to find her transfixed. "No eyes!" she exclaimed. I stepped closer to the portrait of a handsomely dressed man. His eyes had been maliciously torn from the canvas, and a tear stroked his cheek. "No eyes shall see thee," Mrs. Hanson moaned, as she moved to another portrait, and then another. The same violation had occurred in all of the portraits lying in the hall. Behind us, the main door slammed shut. I ran over to it, but it was stuck fast. "But how can that be? I have the keys!" I screamed to Mrs. Hanson. Frantically, I wrestled with the door handle, but to no avail. It would not open. The noise moaned again. I couldn't tell where it was coming from. It seemed eerily omnipresent. At that moment, each of the doors on this floor began to open and shut wildly, creating a loud din that would have surely woken all residents if there had been any. One door at the end of the corridor remained shut, but it shook as if the force beyond it was determined to get through. Through to us, I thought. I attempted to scream, but no sound came out. No longer aware of Mrs. Hanson's presence, I found she'd fainted on the floor next to me, and as I knelt beside her, my candle blew out. In the darkness, I felt an icy breath on the back of my neck. I froze on the spot, paralysed with fear physically, unable to turn to face whatever it was behind me. At once, all of the doors slammed shut, with the exception of the one at the far end of the hall. This door, the one that had been shaking ferociously before, now began to open. In the stillness of the now silent house, I heard a dragging sound across the wooden floor, but I saw nothing. Only a faint slice of moonlight illuminated the open door. Fear pulsated through my entire body, my heartbeat racing. Cold beads of sweat slid down the back of my neck. And then, just as I felt I could bear no more, a grim, ghostly face appeared before me. "No eyes," I gasped. I felt as if I would die. With a long, piercing scream, the face departed and the open door slammed shut. My candle was lit again, as if it had never been extinguished, and Mrs. Hanson stirred into a sitting-up position. She rose to her feet, and I led her to the stairwell door. I fumbled for the keys, but I did not need them. The door that I could not get through a moment or two earlier was unlocked. We hurried towards the landing below as the door closed once more. With the sound of the door clicking shut, the events of that night were sealed behind it, but locked in our minds forever.